Hi, I'm C.C. Péan, and this is Reclaiming Your Health. Good evening and welcome, everybody, to the final episode of Reclaiming Your Health for 2020. Can you believe it? This year has gone by so quickly. It is mind blowing. But God is good. We're still here. This evening, we are going to create a New Year Diaspora Soul Bowl. We've talked about Buddha bowls before, which is basically comprised of a grain, a green, a protein, oftentimes some kind of sauce. Well, we're going to make one that celebrates the African diaspora. So, and this is something that many of my followers probably already do some kind of variation of this. One thing I need to say straight off, I don't know what I was talking about when I was giving the measurements for this bowl. 1 cup of rice, yeah, maybe 1 cup of tofu, but 1 cup of greens, that's not going to cut it. So probably 1 cup of greens per person. So anyway, we're going to get started. This soul bowl is going to incorporate black-eyed peas. We're going to talk a little bit about that. It's going to incorporate some okra. This is actually a gumbo mix that I purchased, a frozen gumbo mix, which is corn, bell peppers, onions, and okra. That's going to go with our black-eyed peas. We are going to use some tofu that I have marinated in my special sauce that I'm going to talk about later. And we're going to have some short grain rice cooked with coconut milk, because you all know how I love coconut milk. It's just so, it's like a hug for your tummy. And the black-eyed peas, we're going to be using one of my spices as well. So these New Year food traditions, there's so many stories as to how this got started. Why do people from the African American community eat black-eyed peas for New Year? If anybody's following and you want to type and tell me what you think, why and how that started. One story is that it was brought to the American South by Sephardic Jews, because black-eyed peas are a staple in a lot of the areas that Sephardic Jews came from. But Africa also has a long history with black-eyed peas. So there's another conversation that, these black-eyed peas came over during the Middle Passage. I tend to stick with that because my mother actually is from Guyana, South America. It is not part of the Black American South, and black-eyed peas are something that we use. There's one of my favorite dishes is called cook-up rice, and there's a black-eyed pea cook-up. So there's these different conversations about how it became part of African American culture. There's also a story that it's associated with keeping us from starvation during the Civil War, when there was really nothing to eat. These black-eyed peas gave the African American or the Black community, the slaves, the enslaved, nutrition and sustenance. So there's so many stories associated with it. While I'm talking, I'm going to get cooking. The first thing we're going to do tonight is we're going to get started on our rice. I'm going to start everything in this pot, and then I'm going to transfer it to the stove and keep going. So I'm putting in a spoon of garlic, a couple tablespoons of onions, and a little bit of thyme. I usually use fresh thyme, but I didn't have any. And yes, I am making rice. And yes, all of this goes in rice. You all have heard me talk ad nauseum about building layers of flavor. This is one of the things I do even with my rice. My husband's family is Haitian, and white rice is not just white rice. It is definitely seasoned. And yes, we're using white rice tonight. A little indulgent New Year's tradition using rice. Some people also will fix this with cornbread. That's another way you can do it. That could be your grain that's made into a bread. So black-eyed peas. Peas represent. I was looking it up. Peas represent peace. Peas represent the fact that peas swell. It says that may your fortunes grow like the black-eyed peas grow. There's a lot of different explanations as to what peas mean for New Year's. So I'm adding a cup of short grain rice, and I'm going to stir that up a little more with my garlic and my onions and my thyme. Going to add just a little bit of salt there. It's maybe like a teaspoon or half a teaspoon. And then what I'm going to add to this 1 cup of rice is 2 cups of liquid. 1 cup, which is low fat coconut milk, and a cup of water. And it's going to go right in there. I'm going to stir this a little bit. I'm going to let it come to a boil, and then I'm going to drop it down to a simmer and let it cook for about 25 to 30 minutes. So another component, or another component, another item that is used quite often or always, not quite often, always for New Year are greens, collard greens. Well, greens, again, they represent wealth. They represent abundance. So this is something that is also included in on New Year Day celebrations. Now, I decided to do a bowl because I thought it was kind of like a more modern take. One of the things you could do is you could help people can make their own bowls. You could have, black-eyed peas. You could have red beans and rice. You could have okra. You could have white rice. You can have cornmeal, like cornmeal mush if you wanted to. We call it cornmeal porridge. In Haiti, they call it maïs. You could just have cornbread. There's so many different things that you could do. And I just kind of in my head, I imagine having all these different things that represent the diaspora and allowing people to make their own celebratory New Year bowl. So this is starting to come to a boil. One of the things when you cook this rice, you have to check it ever so often because of the thickness of the coconut milk. You don't want it to stick and burn. And that's actually another conversation we can have about rice, because some people consider that burned. And in a lot of traditions, cultures that come from Africa, that rice at the bottom, that crispy rice, is something that people love. In my mother's country, it's called bun bun, like burn burn. In Haitian culture, it's called gratin. I think in Jamaican culture, it's called pot bottom. I think, Yolande, you can tell me if that's true, pot bottom. But it is so good because that's the part of the rice that like all the seasonings, like they get in there. And it's just like, there are people that know how to cook a pot of rice specifically to get that layer. And in my father's country, pot bottom rice, okay. In my father's country, that rice is only the elders get it. Young people don't get that rice. It is something that is special for people in the community that are older people. Interesting story. And I did not know that it traveled like that. And when I heard, my mom was like, oh yeah, we eat that. And, it's something that some people may think it's burned or something's wrong with the rice, but it's really special rice. Okay, so this is boiling. So I'm going to move this off this stove into my back stove. Turn on my timer and cover my rice. And the next thing we're going to work on are our black-eyed peas. A delicacy in South Korea. Wow, I did not know that. Well, I think I have heard that. And I know that some of you may know about, I think it's tadish, that's part of Middle Eastern culture. That is a rice where the entire crust, they actually flip it over and it's served that way. So there's so many things. Okay, so now we're gonna get started on our black-eyed peas. Gonna put a little bit of oil in this pan. Now, I discovered these peas today and I thought this was really neat. They're like vacuum packed and they refrigerated, so they cook a lot faster. Now, black-eyed peas are actually one of the peas that don't take a long time to cook, but I really like this. So I purchased this today. It's about 4 servings. When you open it up, this is what it amounts to. It's pretty good. It's from a company here in Florida, but I'm assuming that it should be something that you would be able to find elsewhere. So now we're gonna get started on our black-eyed peas. I put some oil in my pan. We're gonna put in our onions. Every pot has to have some kind of onion or garlic. You are not in the diaspora if you do not have that. We're gonna use a little bit of my pureed garlic. We're actually gonna use a little bit of pureed ginger in this as well. Again, we're building those layers of flavor. And this is already cooking up. And it smells divine. I'm gonna add some chopped tomatoes to this. One of the things I actually discovered when I spent a few months in Ghana a couple years back is tomatoes are a huge part of cuisine in West Africa in particular. Now, some people can't really do tomato. And if you can't do tomato, don't. But if you're trying to kind of connect the dots with your dish, you definitely have to put some tomatoes in there. If you don't use tomatoes, you can do tomato paste. My brother actually does not like cooked tomatoes, but he doesn't mind the tomato flavor. So I often use tomato paste when I'm doing things for him. Okay, that has cooked down a little bit. So now I'm gonna add a little bit of my gumbo mix. Now, some of y'all don't like okra, but you do not know what you're missing. Okra is some good stuff. And actually, cooking it like this, it may not stand out as much. And something I always encourage people to do is, you may not have liked okra when you ate it 20 years ago. Try it now. It might actually work for you now. Okay, so now our black-eyed peas are gonna go in here. And we're just gonna stir this up a little bit. That looks beautiful already. And to this, I'm going to add some of my diaspora chili blend to give a little bit of heat. What's great about this chili blend is you can use as much or as little as you want. If you like a lot of heat, you can use a little more. If you just want a little hint, you use a little less. So I've kind of gone halfway with that. And this is well mixed. And so to help this along, we're gonna put just about, I would say we're gonna use like a half a cup of water. Now these peas that are vacuum packed, these cook in about 10 to 20 minutes, which is great. Okay, so I'm gonna move this off of here and put it on the stove, cover it. All right, so next we're gonna work on our greens. Now I've fixed these greens with you all before. These are the greens that I talk about that we kind of stir fry them. We don't wanna overcook our greens because we don't wanna kill all the nutrition. There's no reason to do that. So what I've done is I've washed and trimmed my greens. I did not take out the stalks because we're going to cut these thin enough that the stalks are not a problem. And there's so much nutrition in the stalks, you don't want to throw them out. And nor do you want to cook them till the greens are about to fall apart. So if you remember, what we do is we stack our leaves and then we tightly roll them. So it's like a cylinder. And then we just go through and cut them in fine. Just keep cutting them. Make sure you watch your fingers. Always cup your fingers so that if you slip, you don't hurt yourself. Okay? And now after we've cut them like that, then we go down the center and we cut them again. What this helps with is they're going to cut evenly and quickly because they're smaller cuts. Okay? Just a touch of oil. These you can actually cook without oil if you wanted to. You could just do some seasoned broth. But I'm adding onion. And I want to saute my onions. The onions are going in here. We're going to use some more of this yummy ginger. We're going to use a last bit of our garlic. Ooh, I can turn this down a little bit. Okay, so that is already fried up nicely. We're going to drop our greens in there. And what actually moves these greens along in terms of cooking is going to be the steam that's generated. You know, greens have a lot of water in them. So we're going to let that water in the greens do their work. We might add just a touch of water. But these are cooking rather quickly. Wow, and they smell great. Just a little bit of my magic mushroom salt. Now, do you all, any of my watchers, do any of you follow the tradition on New Year's Day of having greens and black-eyed peas? And if you're not part of the African-American culture, what does your culture do? Is there something special you do on New Year's Day? I know that with my husband's culture, so I'm going to take this off and I'm going to put this on the stove. Cover it. I'm just going to actually let that steam through. I'm not going to really worry about any heat under that. In my husband's culture, and I've shared that his family is Haitian, that is the day that soup joumou is eaten. Soup joumou is a soup that it's a squash soup that's eaten, and it was something that during the time of slavery in Haiti, slaves could not eat it. They couldn't eat it. And so once they received their liberation and their freedom, or once they took their liberation and freedom, it was something that every first of the year, they commemorate their freedom by eating soup joumou. And if you go to a Haitian house and they don't have soup joumou, something is seriously wrong. So the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to do our tofu. And then we're going to assemble everything. So this tofu was pressed. We've talked about how to do this. You You cut your tofu, you put it in between either paper towel or a clean dish towel, and you put some weight on it. What that does is it pushes all the water out of the tofu and it opens it up so that whatever marinade you have, it's going to suck it right up. You've got to get rid of that water. That's why a lot of people, when they eat tofu, it tastes like absolutely nothing because it's like you're biting a sponge. What we're doing is we're squeezing all the water out of that, and we're whatever we marinated in, whatever you marinated in, if it's soy sauce, if it's ginger, if it's, with me, I'm using my maple jerk seasoning, it's gonna suck it right up. And so that when you take a bite, you're tasting full flavor and not a mouthful of water. So what we're gonna do with this is I have a little bit of cornstarch here. I'm gonna put it in my bowl. And these pieces of tofu are just gonna get tossed in it. Just toss that like that. You're gonna see how quickly this goes. My husband is upstairs on the phone talking like he wants to be part of our conversation. I don't know what that's about. Anyway, so this tofu has been tossed in this cornstarch. And so now I'm gonna put it in the pan. And what this is gonna do is it's gonna seal in the flavors that I've marinated it in, but it's gonna give it a crispy texture, which is great. Now, some people don't necessarily need the crispy texture, and if you don't, that's fine. You could stop at this point. You could just marinate it, warm it, or you could have it at room temperature. You don't have to do this part. This is just something that I like to do because what I'm gonna do at the very end is I'm gonna toss this in a little more of my maple jerk sauce because I want my diaspora bowl to be like popping. I want every single bite to be amazing. Okay, so let me take a quick look at our stove and see what's going on with our black-eyed peas. They look great. Look like they're coming along. Now, I don't know how many of you know this, that it is actually better for your body to eat things al dente than mushy. Al dente means to the tooth. So when you eat, for example, when you eat pasta, you shouldn't eat pasta that is mushy. You don't want to eat pasta that is mushy. It's really not best for your digestion. And a lot of people like pasta that is mushy, but that's not best. You want it to have a little bite. And so that also goes for things like beans and things like that. It needs to be cooked, but you don't necessarily want it to be mushy. You don't want it to be mushy. So these are coming along well. I'm gonna turn these. You can do these in larger pieces if you like. You can do them in smaller pieces. I did it this size because it's easier to manage. And I wanted to also thank you all. I launched my spices last week and I had an overwhelming response. And I'm so grateful because I know many of you watch me weekly and you supported me. So thank you. And you all are seeing how these spices can be used. I'll let that cook a little more. Now, I have not done tofu in an air fryer, but I've been told that that can be done. And yes, thank you for sharing that. Offcavefoods.com is where you can get the spices. I actually have a spice flight right now that I'm selling that is the diaspora chili blend. It is the tofu scramble magic, and it is the quarantine curry. And the thing about these spices are they were lovingly made. They are mixed by me. They're small batch. They are flavors that I believe, well, the quarantine chili and it's quarantine, not quarantine. Quarantine is an area in Guyana where my mother was from. And there's a very large Indian population there, and they're known for their curry. And so that's why that got that name. But the diaspora chili blend and the quarantine curry, I developed them because they represent to me the continent. They represent the not the continent, the diaspora. Curry is something that you find all over the Caribbean and the West Indies. And cayenne and chili and things like that are things that you find on the continent. Pepper is like a foundation on the continent. It's amazing to me that people eat pepper the way that they do. Again, going back to when I was in Ghana, I could not believe, like, I remember at the Marriott Hotel, I was there for a meeting, and you would think, like, at the hotel where international travelers come there, that they would make sure that some of their food was at least mild. No, I guess they figured if you're in Ghana, you're going to eat like Ghanaians. And it was spicy. So if you can see, our tofu is done. See how it's nice and golden brown? Can you see that? Nice and golden brown in a matter of minutes. And now what we're going to do to kick this up a notch is we're going to use some of my maple jerk syrup. So it's going to be spicy, sweet heat. And I'm just going to pour it. And what it's going to do with the cornstarch that's on that tofu, it's just going to like latch onto it. It's gonna just like, so you've got it in, you've got the flavor sealed in, then you've got your crunchiness, and now you're gonna have a coating of this spicy sweet heat on the exterior. Yumma, yumma, yumma. And if you wanted to, with this recipe, and you don't wanna use the maple jerk, and you wanna use barbecue, at that point, you would add the barbecue. After you've gotten to that golden brown color of your tofu, I would just take maybe two tablespoons of barbecue sauce, add just a little bit of water just to loosen it up a little bit, and then pour it over and do as you see me doing. Just make sure that it's evenly distributed and coating. You want every piece to have that yumminess on it. You know, y'all know that I'm obsessed with things being evenly cooked and evenly seasoned because it gives a wonderful dining experience. That's what my obsession is. All right, people. So we're almost done. So let's talk a little bit more about these New Year food. Okay, so rice stands for riches. Oh, wonderful. Melissa has been used. So Melissa won a contest when we were talking about, what was the question? I can't even remember what the question was. The difference between between soy sauce and Bragg's liquid aminos. And she won a spice flight and she's been using it. And I'm so happy. I'm so happy. She just said that her kids love it, which I'm happy to hear. They are not for the faint of heart, I will tell you that. But they are definitely representative of the continent. I don't know why I'm dropping things. I was telling Stanley earlier that last week I was so out of it. I didn't know what was going on. And this week, I am still a little bit out of it. I think I've been a little out of it for past 4 years. Let's see. Okay, our rice is done. Our greens have steamed through beautifully. Let's check our black-eyed peas with our okra. Those look wonderful as well. So I'm going to clear off this space so that I can move everything here. Bear with me for just a moment. A little garnish here. All right. This is kind of hot. Do our greens. Those look delish. We'll do our black-eyed peas. Move this over a little more. Okay. Black-eyed peas. And the last thing is our rice. I'm having a steam bath here with all this steam in my face. But can you all see this? So, of course, this is the point where you would taste for if you wanted more salt or more seasoning. This is the point when you would taste for that. And we've got our bowl. Look at this. Look at the colors. The maple jerk syrup will be available for Black History Month in February. That's when it'll be available. I'm so excited. I just know that you all are going to love it. It's so good. So if you're somebody who is like a chicken and waffles or like a veggie chicken and waffles person or something like that, or even chicken and waffles, it's perfect because it's sweet, but it's got a little bit of kick too. So it's the kind of thing that if it's on the chicken or on the waffle, it's delicious. I have sliced up veggie sausage with peppers and onions and then just dropped like a drizzle of that over it and tossed it together. It's delicious. It's so good. It's so good. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put some rice in the bowl. You know, rice in and of itself is so representative of the diaspora. Most countries along the eastern side of the country, typically that is where you will find Africans from the slave trade. So for example, when you go to Brazil, the Bahia is on the eastern side of Brazil, and rice is very big there. In Mexico, Veracruz, on that side, rice, it's wherever the slave ships drop people off, there is going to be some good food and there's going to be some rice. So rice is the center of our bowl, okay? The next thing we're going to do is we're going to put some of our black-eyed peas and our okra. Okay, the next thing we're going to do, we're going to add our greens. You see how vibrant these greens are? This is how your greens are supposed to look. And we've got our ginger in there, and we've got our garlic in there. We've got our greens. And then finally, guess I can use this again. We're going to put our tofu that has been marinated and then tossed in the maple jerk. Oh, looks like we've covered up our rice. And then the last thing we're going to do is we're just going to put some scallion on it just to brighten it up a bit. Now, you can add avocado to this. If you have a type of pepper sauce or something that is part of your culture, in Haitian culture, there's pickles. You could put a nice dollop of pickles on here. Chow chow, you can do that. I think I mentioned avocado, chopped tomato, whatever you want to, just to round this out. But this is our New Year Diaspora Soul Bowl. We've got the rice that is speaking to the African diaspora and the travel across the Middle Passage, South Carolina, where the slaves were brought, where the enslaved were brought to grow rice because they had the knowledge of rice from areas like Sierra Leone. So we've got the rice represented. We've got the black-eyed peas. We've got our greens, which, so many, no matter where you're from in the diaspora, greens are a part of our diet. And then we've got tofu. Typically this would probably have like turkey neck or ham hock or something like that. We're not doing that. We're having tofu. In place of tofu, if you wanted to avoid the soy, you could do some beautiful mushrooms and just season them like you would season meat. Great addition. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take this off because this is still cooking. I am going to taste my diaspora bowl. It really came together quickly and easily. I'm going to taste the rice and the black-eyed peas. Very good. Very good. I like these black-eyed peas. Now, these peas are definitely al dente. I cooked them for about 10 minutes. The package said 10 to 20 minutes, so I went on the lesser end, but I like al dente, so it works for me. Let me taste my greens. And this is something else. I don't know how this started. I like to eat with a spoon. And I find that quite in many parts of the diaspora culture, African diaspora culture, people eat with spoons. Greens are delicious. Simple. Garlic, ginger, thinly sliced greens, touch of salt. And now let's taste this tofu. It has the maple jerk on it. Hard to feel blown on that. Delicious, delicious. So, as I said when I posted this on my page, I'm sure you all have most of these ingredients in your refrigerator, in your pantry. If you don't, just a quick trip, buy a bunch of collard greens. You can use kale if you want to, with something green. Get your black-eyed peas. You can buy them frozen. Please do not buy canned. Frozen or dried, or vacuum packs like I did in the refrigerated section. Make it easy on yourself. You can buy a bag of gumbo mix, or you can buy a bag of frozen okra. It makes it all go much quicker. We've got our tofu that we pressed to get the water out of. Then we marinated it so it would suck up the flavor. Tossed it lightly in some cornstarch, pan fried it, and then put some more of my maple jerk on it. Speaking of my maple jerk, that will be coming out in February, but right now what we have is a spice flight, which features the quarantine curry. It's the only curry you will ever need, literally. A spoon of that in your pot, a spoon of that in whatever, like if you are fixing meat, you would marinate that in it. If you're not, You just get some oil in your pan. You mix that curry with just enough water to make it like a paste, and then fry it. You have to fry your curry. Then add your vegetables. Make sure it's coated. You can add a little bit of water so steam cooks it through. You can add some coconut milk if you want to make a really luscious coconut curry. Cover it, let it cook for about 10 to 15 minutes. Boom, done. We've got our diaspora chili blend, which is great. If you are somebody who likes chili, it's the perfect thing for chili. It'll give you a really different kind of journey through the African diaspora in a bite. That's what I like to say. So it's great. You can add a little bit of this to your mayo if you want to make a sandwich. You just want to add a little bit of spice to it. It's great. So those are, and then the tofu scramble magic. 14 ounces of extra firm tofu. You fry that up with I put chopped kale in my my scramble, mushrooms, kale, onions. You can put whatever you want to put in it. Put it in there, mix it together. Take a heaping tablespoon of the tofu scramble magic, sprinkle it over your tofu, mix it together. Perfect tofu scramble. Okay, so these are the two that are featured today. But the maple jerk, I'm going to make it in a larger container because I'm telling you, you guys will be done with this in 2 days. It's so good. It's going to be in a larger container, and that will be coming out in February. But anyway, thank you all so much for your support. I have so enjoyed cooking with you and teaching you and learning from you and answering your questions over the past several months. I cannot believe, I think we've done I want to say 18 episodes by now. It's crazy that time has gone by so quickly. 20 episodes. Wow. 20 episodes. And I have enjoyed every single one. Thank you all so much for your support. We look forward to next year. We're going to be doing a few little different things that I think that you're going to enjoy. Stanley has some great ideas, and actually Stan has some great ideas, and we're going to incorporate them moving forward. But thank you all for supporting the Reclamation Project. Thank you for supporting Reclaiming Your Health. Thank you for supporting C.C. Péan. Thank you for supporting Afkave Foods. And thank you for being a steward of your temple that the Master Creator has gifted us with. So I will see you soon. I don't know if you're going to see me next week, but you will see me soon.